On this episode of Jumpstart Hobbies, we are building a futuristic lab where one crazy doctor and his two assistants are working on time travel technology. Along with the characters of our story, I envision some futuristic tech decorating the lab, so I find these pieces as well. One thing about a time machine is people always think of going into them, but what happens when something comes out? That's exactly what we'll explore in this project, as through the portal steps a giant monster from millions of years in the past. So stick around to find out how we bring this portal and the rest of the lab to life using some new techniques. This leads to some cool successes, but also a new segment of our episodes I'd like to call Lessons Learned. So here's my desk with most of the supplies we'll use for this project, and we'll magically turn them into this. But first, let's get to the whiteboard and plan out this design. I start with a wood panel as the base. My next question is how to create a portal. After a few ideas with an acrylic sheet, I have the thought of using a second panel in a vertical position to act as our portal framework. My plan is to paint the underside and do a resin pour for the portal surface. This will allow me to drill holes in the side walls to wire up lights and illuminate the resin. Then decorate the scene with platforms, equipment, and characters. With a rough idea in place, let's plan out the colors. Once our models are printed and colors selected, I clear the desk. Let's get to work. Beginning with a black primer from Pro Acryl and a white zenithal highlight with some Daler Rowney ink. Remember, if you want to purchase any of the items I use or talk about, check the link in the description for all the info on my crafting materials. Once the airbrush work is done, I head to the paint desk to work on the base. I start by drilling the holes in the side of the portal. To add some variety to the shape of the portal, I cut up pieces of adhesive foam to create designs on the surface. I also use the foam and some cork to create the shapes of my platforms in the lab. A quarter circle platform will be elevated in each corner for the assistants, and a walkway with steps will go down the center for the doctor. To raise these platforms in the air, I cut a wooden rod into tiny pillars. Lastly, I decide these pieces will be power cores for our time machine. I cut some foam that will be turned into electrical modules for the power cores. I drill holes into all of these pieces, and off camera I bend some wire to act as cables to run between the parts. Then I adhere all the foam together and glue the legs to the bottom of the platforms. With the foam work done, I start soldering up the wires. I use blue LED bulbs and thicker wires that will act as cables from the time machine. When the first one is done, I run it through the hole and test the connection. Then I work on the housing for the battery and wires. I find this scrap piece of foam I think will work perfect for this task and cut a hole in the side to pass the switch through. My plan is to attach it to some black foam core board and insert the battery pack inside. All of this will be glued behind the wall of the portal later. Now that I'm settled on some wiring details, I take all the pieces I just created and move them to the airbrush booth. I prime them all in black to seal them for future work. I use 3 primary colors for the lab: gunmetal, silver, and black. I try to make each piece in the lab a different color from any adjacent piece. This leads to the first lessons learned in this project. If you build something out of cork and don't want a textured feature, make sure to coat it with a thick enough layer to create a smooth top surface, like with a gesso or primer. Once everything else is done, I tape off the edges and spray what will be the back of the portal. I go back and forth with different shades and textures until I'm happy with the surface. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and click the subscribe button for weekly content like this. With the background painted, I use packing tape to block the holes, making sure to press them sharply into the corners to seal it tight. I also use UV resin at the edges to make sure to avoid possible leaks. When the seal is cured, it's time to measure and mix our resin. I use a single drop of blue ink to color the resin before properly mixing it. I pour the mixture and then use a heat gun to pop all the bubbles in the resin. Then I leave it to cure for the next 24 hours. While the resin is curing, I move to the paint desk to work on our characters, starting with our prehistoric monster. I decide on an orange and turquoise color scheme that should contrast well together and make him stand out from the blue portal in Metal Lab. I continue the base layers with shades of red for the mouth and tongue, and shades of ivory on the teeth. Followed by painting the eyes using fluorescent yellow. Next, I add contrast to each section, starting with the blue wash over the turquoise areas. Then I go back over those areas with a lightened version of the turquoise for highlights. To add interest to the teeth, I add some brown washes and black lining to create finer detail. I use the same black to draw some slits in the eyes and color the claws. Followed by a bright ivory highlight on the teeth. Once the teeth are done, I focused on the eyes. I messed around with different styles and colors before ending with a yellow to red blend. After finishing the dinosaur, I bring the time machine back to the desk to check the resin, leading me to my second and third lessons learned. I shouldn't have put resin directly over tape because it gave me the weird surface seen here. I should have painted over it or trimmed the bottom parts away. Also, I realized I forgot to cover the piece while it was curing, leading to tiny dust particles on the surface. Luckily, I feel like this won't be noticeable once we finish the portal surface. But first, let's glue the dinosaur to the portal. Once the head and arms are glued into place, I use some gloss Mod Podge around the perimeter of the pieces for a glowing effect I'm planning. Then I do a general coat over the front to create a wavy surface. With the portal surface ready, I finish the rest of the 6 LED bulbs and test again. Then begin assembling the battery housing. I glue the white foam piece to the black foam core board, then insert some strips of foam core inside for extra strength. I use some adhesive foam as the back cover and began routing the wires into the holes. I test again and the lights are still working. At this point, I decide the metal panels look a bit plain, so I take a fine liner pen and create small black holes to represent bolts along the metal. I do the same technique to the portal frame as well as all of the other foam pieces on the base. Then I work on the glow effect I mentioned by using pale blue and white painted around the dinosaur to look like it's breaking through the surface of the portal. With the portal part pretty much done, I move to the platforms and equipment, painting the electrical panels and platform bases black. Then I use another fine liner to draw a grate in the walkway platform of the Doctor. The texture and softness causes me to have to color and cut grooves at the same time to achieve this effect. Then I colored the chair black before painting the power cores and control modules silver. I use black wash on the power cores and black paint on the crevices of the control modules. I also paint the keys and screens of these pieces. To break up the lab floor, I draw a grid to show metal panels on the ground. Then I start painting the doctor and his assistants. The majority of their color is already mostly white from the zenithal highlight, so I work on the black pieces first. Then the skin and doctor's hair. I use gray and white to add some final highlights before calling the characters done. Next, I glue the power cores to the wires I made. I decide the base still looks a little plain, so I paint some lights and grates on the surface. Similar to the dinosaur glow, I use pale blue and white to create a glow effect. Then use a brush pen to create the diagonal lines on the 6 panels. Then I glue everything into place and the base is done. I use wood glue to attach the flat base to the vertical time machine. Then I use some black adhesive foam to cover the remaining white sections on the back. With these final details covered, we're finally ready for the big reveal. Until next time, see y'all later.